Hey friends, Alvis here. Welcome to my new S tier Fury Druid build. This is completely off meta, tier 100. I'm guessing you want to see some gameplay first, so let's kick it off. I think you're going to love this one, guys. All right, guys, let's go over the gear. I just wanted to mention too, I apologize about not uploading for the last 2 weeks. I got really sick and I lost my voice. I was talking like that. I couldn't even talk. I apologize about that. So you're going to notice a couple of things that are a little bit different and interesting the way that we've put this character together. So the entire build revolves around attack speed. First of all, we've got Rapid on our amulet. So basic skills gain 45% attack speed just by being there. That's really, really big. But you're also going to notice too that the stats are a little bit different. So if you look at, we've got a 10% cooldown reduction, but then we've got 23% attack speed for 4 seconds after dodging an attack. Now you're also going to notice too that on my gloves, I have a very similar setup as well. We've got 21% attack speed for 4 seconds after dodging an attack. Now, you might have heard me talk about running other stats from other classes from my live streams from last season. Well, this season, I am trading so we can finally implement this cool stuff. Now, the 23% attack speed for 4 seconds after dodging an attack, that's not a druid stat. It actually rolls on the rogue. I've acquired a rogue amulet with desirable stats for my character, and then I've rolled into +3 to Envenom for a little bit of extra DPS. So that's why you see an alien stat on this amulet that doesn't usually exist. These stack together additively, and we have got dodge in my build to make sure that this triggers every single fight. So you can imagine here, 20% attack speed on the gloves, 23% on the amulet, and then the basic skills gain 45% attack speed. We're getting 90% attack speed just from these 2 items alone. And we stack this even higher as we go. So you start to get a bit of an idea what we're doing with this build now. We've got the Grizzly Rage combo that you guys are very familiar with, I'm sure. The duration of Grizzly Rage is increased by 5 seconds. And I've also got the Direwolf imprinted as well. We're going to be relying on Grizzly Rage. We don't really care too much about the stats here. I mean, the movement speed is nice. All we care about that when we use Grizzly Rage, we get converted to a werewolf. So that's what we're doing with this. Now, on our third stat, this is where a heap of our DPS comes from. So we've got Overcharged. Lucky hits up to a, let's say, 20% chance when dealing lightning damage to overload the target for 3 seconds. You will see this. So it's going to do 3,000 damage and a little bit of AoE. It looks like a little lightning pulses coming out everywhere. Because our attack speed is so fast, this thing is proccing all the time. Now, on our helm, we're just going to be focusing on damage reduction for the rest of our armor. You notice that we're not running Tempest Roar, which I think is a nice change of pace. So we've got just damage reduction while shapeshifted. On the helm, we've got 10% basic skill attack speed as well. This is a middling roll too. This can go up to 15%. So we're selling ourselves a little bit short here with this roll. And we've got some life, some armor, and cooldown reduction as well. So our Grizzly Rage is up all the time. Another great source of attack speed. Then on our armor, we've got Disobedience, which is a must for pretty much every druid build. Done the gloves. Then on our pants, we've got basic skills grant 20% damage reduction. And then lastly, on our boots, we are sacrificing some movement speed because we get that while in Grizzly Rage. Debilitating Roar is now a werewolf skill. We're going to be relying on as much defense as possible. Because we're using this attack speed after dodge, we need to introduce dodge to our gear. There's not a lot of places you can get dodge on. And you can also go overboard with the dodge. So we've got 8% on my boots and also on my pants, I've got 7% as well. Now, your character naturally has some dodge because of your dexterity. So with these two stats, I have a total of 20%. There it is, dodge, 20%, or just very, very shy from that. Unfortunately, because we have introduced dodge, we actually miss out on a whole heap of damage reduction in general, especially on this amulet. Now, we've got a lot of really very desirable stats on this thing. I would say the dexterity is not that important on this amulet. The 7.4%, I think it adds 2% dodge. Not really worth it. In an ideal world, we would have damage reduction from enemies that are close or something like that. Some more damage reduction in general, but that is super, super unrealistic to be able to get. I mean, just to get an amulet like this in general is extraordinarily hard. I would even go as far as to say dropping Envenom for the damage reduction would be very, very, very good too. And then lastly, we've got a really, really good Crone Staff. If you don't have a +9 ranks to Claw Crone Staff, it doesn't matter too much because of just how incremental the DPS goes up when leveling skills in Diablo 4 in general. So you're not missing out on too much. Now, we've also thrown in 2 perfect topazes, 20% basic skill damage, which is a nice bonus. What I recommend, well, this is what I'm doing, is I'm putting 2 rubies in my pants, a ruby in my helmet, and then I've got some damage reduction while fortified as well. I really value that. But what I would suggest is instead of getting crit damage on your rings like I have, you would go for max life. Unfortunately, it is quite difficult to find these type of rings with the perfect color slots as well that you really want. So that's something I'm looking forward to upgrading. So I would try and get some more life on rings. And then the last thing as well, on my gloves, you'll notice that I've got 25% lightning critical strike damage. Well, claw is physical damage. Even though it's converted to storm, having just straight up crit damage would be ideal. I just haven't rolled into it yet. So that's another little upgrade that I'm looking for as well. Now, the Malignants play a massive role in this build. Every single one is just as important as each other. So we're running the Barber, of course, critical strikes. You want to be able to get like 2.4 seconds is kind of the longest you want to get. The shorter, the better. 2.4 seconds is manageable, in my opinion. Now, we've also got a bit of a middling roll again with this one here. So this is just straight up 15% damage reduction. Okay, we don't care about the fire damage that comes off it. Just the DR is nice. Now, thanks to our cooldown reduction, we're going to have Grizzly Rage up 95% of the time, if not 100% of the time. So that means up to 49 enemies are going to be pulled in. So we're constantly going to be attracting enemies with this Malignant. You might be thinking about running the one that on crit does lightning damage. The damage is too small. In my opinion, these are the 3 best options. So luckily, all you have to do is make sure one of your rings is purple or this deep blue color, and the last 2 are Wrathful Hearts. So they can go in any color at all. So it's going to make things a little bit easier for you. All right, let's go over the Spirit Boons quickly before we jump into the abilities. Very, very easy to figure out. 10% damage reduction from elites. I've got 10% attack speed here. Ideally, you'd want to go for maximum life. I'm running the attack speed because I like to play this character in level 90 dungeons rather than sweating it out in 100s. So if you were to do the 100, you'd go for health. We've got a bolster for the extra fortify, of course. We've got calm before the storm. This is going to make sure Grizzly Rage is always up. And then you've got 2 different opportunities here. One of them is masochistic for a little bit of life return. It's really not that effective because of the Barber. You've also got overload as well. I find that my character does enough damage to not have to worry about overload. Abilities. So we are putting all of our points into our basic skills. This is our bread and butter where we do most of our DPS. So we've got Claw. It's sitting on level 14, which is great. And we're going to run Wild Claw so we can attack twice. It's so quick, you can barely even see it. We've also max leveled Storm Strike. Obviously, both of these are going to proc from the Crone Staff. We're going for vulnerability. So we've skipped all of our core skills completely. So I've got 3 points into Predatory Instinct. It's going to give us a little bit of crit chance against close enemies. You notice I've also skipped the movement speed. I don't value movement speed too much because we're getting a lot of it from Grizzly Rage. 1 point into Cyclone Armor, and then preserving Cyclone Armor for the defense. Obviously, we got 3 points into Vigilance, which is great, 15% damage reduction for 6 seconds. So we're also running Blood Howl with 15% more attack speed and Debilitating Roar. In my opinion, Debilitating Roar is absolutely essential for this build. That's why we've converted it into a werewolf skill so we can use it while we're using Grizzly Rage. You're going to be relying on this heavily because your character is going to be fairly squishy. You have to play properly with this build. We've also got a couple of points into some extra lightning damage. This is just fun. I like to avoid charged atmosphere. It's not my favorite. We are running Hurricane, but Hurricane honestly is for the very brief amount of time that we're not using Grizzly Rage. That's it, because we don't have Tempest Roar to bring this in while we are Grizzly Raged up. So this is just for that. So a little bit of DR for that period of time. Now, this is how we are able to crowd control enemies to make sure that they're poisoned as well. This is important for the Paragon board. I see a lot of new players kind of don't understand this or they miss this. 1 point into Toxic Claw. Critical strikes with werewolf skills deal 8% of the base damage is poison damage. So that's our source of poison. And then poison enemies are now slowed. 3 points into Envenom, 3 points into Defiance. Our single target damage is pretty good, but it's not absolutely fantastic. So to be able to get 12% more is fantastic for us. So that's why we're going into Defiance. We've got 1 point into Defensive Posture, just a little bit of extra fortified generation. And then we've got 3 points into Heightened Senses. So this is damage reduction while playing as a werewolf. Now, of course, we've got Grizzly Rage. Now, for our passive, we're actually using Bestial Rampage. After being a werewolf, 2.5 seconds, you get 25% more attack speed. Alternatively, you can use Lupin Ferocity. All right, let's go over the Paragon board. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I'm just going to go over some of the basics, okay? So for our glyph, we've got Territorial, 10% damage reduction from enemies that are close. Remember, we're pulling enemies in all the time. Heightened Malice, which is a must. It's its own DPS bucket pool. So it's multiplicative as well. You should have this on every druid anyway. And we've also got Fang and Claw. Now, while in werewolf form, close enemies take 12% more damage. Now, we're also running Exploit. Again, this is a must for druids, damage to vulnerable targets. And we've also expanded up here to this rare node Nimble, which gives us a heap of attack speed as well. Now, you're going to notice that this is the Werebear board. We really don't care about any of the nodes. We just care about hitting Bulwark and having an extra glyph socket. So that's what we're doing. And we're running Spirit with this one. And then for the last two, we want to get damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. You can see the theme, right? With this build, we're running Undaunted, 10% damage reduction while you have Fortify. This is a bit of a tricky spot here because we've made our way all the way up to Thunderstruck, which is great. But you're going to notice that it's not a lot of points to go up to crit damage and vulnerable, a huge DPS boost. In fact, we've actually just squeezed out a little bit of extra life instead. I found that my DPS is fine. We do not need more DPS. We need more defense. So that's why we haven't gotten too greedy with our damage. And lastly, we managed to squeeze out one more glyph when we're running werewolf. So extra DR while damage reduction while in werewolf form. And then we've got some extra life here and some willpower, which is just going to help to activate this particular glyph to get the bonus. Okay, so we are in a level 100 dungeon. I'm going to show you guys how to play the character because there's a little bit of a trick to it to start off anyway. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be using Hurricane for damage reduction straight away. We're going to use Debilitating Roar and Blood Howl, all three of them together just to kick off the engagement. And you're also going to notice too that the way we play, we're doing a lot of kiting and moving around. So let's kick it off with our war cries. And we're just going to attack just like that. Right, pretty easy stuff. A lot of DPS coming through. Now, I like to move around, and I'm using Blood Howl for that little bit of extra health too as I'm playing. See, I'm being very, very mobile and nimble with the way I am engaging these monsters. I'm not just walking in and taking damage. So Grizzly Rage has worn off. It's now already back up again. So cycle through with our defensive skills. Use Grizzly Rage. Right, be patient with the enemies. Big hit then. A lot of DPS. Now you're going to notice too that it looks like no damage is coming out. That's because of the barber. You have to wait for it to trigger. Remember, we've got the 50%, around about 50% attack speed when we dodge. I'm going to show you what that actually looks like. So pay attention and look for the dodge text to appear. Right, if we get a chance here. Great, it was a single target. This should be good. So it did trigger there. Yeah, it's going to trigger pretty much every single engagement. You wouldn't be playing this greedy like I am at the moment. Now, I've also found that with the 20% dodge, it's about the minimum that you need for boss fights, for single targets. So you can just see the attack speed coming out of the character there. I'm just standing in this flame stuff too, which you shouldn't be doing. Obviously. Okay. Now, the more characters that are around, the more DPS we get. So Grizzly Rage is now up. Okay, great. This is a single target. Good example here. Get out of the way of the flame. That's pretty much it. That's the playstyle. So as you can see, I mean, this is a really tough dungeon. It's very, very spiky, like I mentioned. As long as you're using Debilitating Roar in most engagements, I mean, it's really not that difficult at all. So a big thanks to my friend Wolf for helping me out with this build. He contributed quite a lot of ideas towards it. So thank you so much, Wolf. You're an absolute legend. If you want to see some more cool Diablo stuff like this, you guys know what to do. See you next time. See you, friends.